Joanna.
Oh,
Hello.
this is Lynn Coiner. I'm not going to turn my Zoom on. I've been working in the garden.
Okay.
Here, you know, it's me,
I
Lynn.
just wanted to check you on the list. But you know, feel free to turn your video off if you're more comfortable with that. Okay. Awesome. So, all right. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started, I'm going to mute all, and then Joanne, if you will unmute yourself. And I'm going to mute everybody because the recording works better with everyone else but the person speaking. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand. Joanne, do you prefer questions at the end or do you mind interruptions?
I think it's pretty informal. If they want to jump in, that's fine.
You know what? I just realized I'm missing Lisa. Oops. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Um, we're just so happy to have everybody here for the Reincarnation Book Club, and we're especially happy to have Joanne DiMaggio here talking about this book. You've been working on this book for quite some time. I've known you for many years, and I know it's been back there. I'm finally glad that you heard the call and it was time for you to finish writing it and publish it. The way I want to start is a show of hands. Who has a memory of someone being a soulmate in your life in this current incarnation? Just raise your hands or raise your electronic hand. Quite a few. Good. All right. How about, does anybody have a memory of a twin soul? Wendy. Now, I have a memory of a soulmate, but not a twin soul. And so I'm really looking forward to learning more about this. And let me just say a few things. I was hoping Lisa would be here because she's one of the stories in the book. And Lisa and Joanne and I have this other connection because we started the whole process with the Reincarnation Symposium. It's just growing and growing since we started that concept 6 years ago. And I met Joanne several years before that at one of her workshops, and she's just a prolific writer. I love the way she describes herself as a journalist for the universe. So she, you know, finds a topic, she digs in, does the research, and then she puts it together so succinctly that anyone can read it and come out knowing something more about the topic. And so, with that being said, I'm going to pin you, Joanne, so you have the stage, and then you can share your link whenever you want to. I'll monitor the participants, let others in that want to join. And if anybody has a question, but they don't want to raise their hand and interrupt, if you put it into the chat while you're thinking about it, then we can come back to it. So, it's all yours, Joanne. Welcome.
Thank you, Carol. Hi, everybody. I'm not used to having friends and family in the audience, so this is really special for me. I'm really happy to see everybody. Yeah, Carol's right. I've been working on this for a while. Actually, I've written 7 books, and I've never really written about the soulmate relationship, even though, you know, I've been doing this work since 1987. That's when I first got started in doing reincarnation research, although I was reading about it as a teenager. I was reading about Edgar Cayce and Ruth Montgomery and Jester and all those folks back in the 60s and 70s that were on the leading edge of this work. But it wasn't until Shirley MacLaine came out in 1987 with Out on a Limb that I started to take it seriously, because the whole philosophy of reincarnation was very calming to me. It was very soothing to me. It answered a lot of the questions that I had that my Catholic upbringing just didn't touch on. So anyway, as I was doing this work all these years, actively doing regressions since the 90s, the subject of soulmates would come up all the time. It was a constant subject. And then when I decided, I have a close relative of mine who was visiting and said to me that he was going through a divorce, which was very shocking to me because he'd only been married a few years. And he said, well, my wife has been looking into soulmates and twin souls and decided I was neither one, and that she was going to go off and find hers. So that was the end of their marriage. And I was so taken aback by that, mostly because I thought, well, she knows what I do. She knows the work that I do. Why didn't she come to me to talk about soulmates? I would have really set her straight. So that got planted in my. I thought, wow, this is such a misunderstood concept. And but then I started seeing it everywhere. It was in TV commercials. There's a paper towel commercial. They talk about soulmates. I saw it in an article in A.R.E. You hear them referencing soulmates in TV shows and movies and everything like that. And I thought, it's all over the place. It's almost as there's a lot of metaphysical terms that are misused. And Old Souls is one of them that drives me crazy. But soulmates is another one. So I decided, like I do with all of my books, that I was going to do a research project around this. I wanted to look at what leading authors and researchers were finding in their own practices, what they were writing about. And then I elicited the help of 10 volunteers who came to my study, and we did a past life regression with them, located their soulmates, talked about that, how that past life relationship was affecting them in the here and now. And so the last part of the book, there are 10 of those case studies, and I'm going to highlight a few of them for you. So with your permission, I would love to share my PowerPoint with you. There it is. Let me see if I can, yeah. So this is the cover of my new book, Soulmates and Twin Souls. Originally I was going to call it something else, but I'll get into that in a minute. But I like the idea of the traveling companions on the road to enlightenment, because and I think in the cover we've tried to show different time periods that they're traveling on the same road with you on that elusive road to enlightenment.
Joanne,
Yes.
hold on a second. Someone's saying they're not seeing it. Let's see.
Is everybody else seeing it?
I'm seeing it.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not sure why Barb is not seeing it, but the others are. So I'm sorry for that interruption, but go ahead.
Okay.
She'll work it out.
All right.
She might need to spread her page out to a bigger frame.
Joanne did. Do you mean
What?
Joanne? Do you mean Barb?
No, I just mean whoever couldn't see her PowerPoint. Sometimes if you don't
she
expand
found
your page, the
Okay.
whole.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
found it. It was on a
Okay.
different tab, she said.
Okay. We good?
Yes.
Okay. So of course you wanted the what is a soulmate? What is the definition of soulmate? I want to start by saying about how misunderstood it is, and it's a misunderstood concept that actually started thousands of years ago. Plato stated that Zeus divided humans in half, And ever since then, there's this concept that we are not whole. And that's put us on this endless search to find this elusive other half of who we believe we are. Some of you know, and some of you are students of Edgar Cayce. Those of you who don't know Edgar Cayce, he was the most renowned psychic of the 20th century. He did 14,000 readings in his lifetime, 12,000 of which were health readings, and he was considered the father of holistic medicine. So he's very far ahead of his time. We're only catching up to some of his remedies right now. But Mr. Cayce didn't believe a soulmate was your other half, but instead thought we were attracted to each other because we complement each other. So soulmates are actually just two closely aligned energy frequencies, and we're broadcasting with each other simultaneously. And we've done that through the ages. So we're drawn to soulmates because we were together in prior lives. That's basically the definition. Anybody that you have been with before. That's why we know each other on such a deep, intimate level. So we've been through a lot with them. We know how they think. We know their trigger points. We know their strengths. We know their weaknesses. And the other thing about a soulmate is it's not one person. There are many, many people who fall in that category, and we'll go through those. And they come and go. Your group expands and contracts over time depending on what we're working on. As I tell my clients, we travel together through the universe as a soul family. We're a family of souls. We're in the same little pod. So the souls that have been with you today have been with you since the beginning of time. Now they change their gender and they change the role that they play in your life, but the essence of them, that's the soul essence is always the same. Whoops, sorry. So as I said, it's a misunderstood concept, and we have this past life connection. There are many of us, and it gets larger and contracts as time goes on. But in answer to somebody's question, they're definitely not always a romantic partner. Absolutely not. And it's not limited to male-female relationships. So who are your soulmates? Your parents, your siblings, your children, other relatives, the people you work with, your teachers, your ministers, your congregants, and your friends. These are all soulmates of yours. This is a quote from you know what? I need to. Okay. This is a quote from Dr. Michael Newton. Many of you know Dr. Newton's work in Life Between Life. This is from his book, Journey of Souls. He defines soulmates as companions to help you and themselves accomplish mutual goals, which can best be achieved by supporting each other in various situations. Oops. So how do we identify a soulmate? Well, one way is through past life regression. We could really get to, well, we're going to get to that in a little bit, but it's definitely anyone in your life who has made a significant difference is generally considered a soulmate. When I do a pre-life planning session, which is the Life Between Life session, we do go in and identify these different souls who come forward when they're in the afterlife, and they say, you know, I'm going to come in with you in your next life, and when I come in with you, this is who I'm going to be, and this is the role that I'm going to play. So we can identify them that way. In the book Twin Souls, a guide to finding your true spiritual partner, Doctors Jowdry and Pressman said about soulmates, we memorize one another in the dim pre-birth state. The longer the association, the more indelible will be the memory. By this memory, they will find their way back to one another. I think that's a beautiful sentiment. I really always love that. So there's a flip side to the soulmate relationship, and that's a cellmate. Now, when I say cell, I don't mean cellular. It's not cellular memory. When I say cell, I mean cell. It's prison. I define a cellmate as somebody who keeps you emotionally imprisoned. Okay, so originally I was going to call my book Soulmate or Cellmate, but I saw that other people were using that and I didn't want to encroach on them. So, but it's an important distinction because a soulmate will come to you cloaked as a soulmate, but they have a completely different agenda. Their purpose is to create chaos that challenges us to address the karmic issues between us. Dr. Christopher Bach called soulmates a contrasting kind of familiarity. He said that when you meet a soulmate, someone who's potentially a soulmate, you experience an immediate threat and you can't be around them without being on guard. And Dr. Newton said, karmic lessons set difficult standards for each of us, and painful experiences involving the heart are deliberate tests in life. They are often of the hardest kind. Boy, isn't that the truth? But that's what soulmates do. They come in, you get this sense that they're a soulmate because there's so much about them that you're attracted to. Some of them are overtly threatening, but most of the time they feel like somebody that you want to know. You open yourself up, you let them in, and then this sets up the karmic lessons that you've set up to learn between the two of you. So how do you recognize a soulmate? Dr. Brian Weiss in Through Time into Healing said, a soulmate is often someone with whom we meet and feel an instant connection, as though we've known that person for a long time. In fact, we probably have. I think each of us knows somebody like that. I know I have met people that I have felt that instant connection with. You know, you feel that sort of deja vu experience, like, oh, something about them. I feel like I've known them, and you feel really comfortable with them. So that's one of the identifying factors. But that definition by itself leaves out family that you may not react to because, you know, they've always been with you. Dr. Christopher Bach says, really trust your gut in meeting these up with these folks. He said, there are persons we meet with whom we immediately feel a depth of connectedness that is completely inappropriate to the circumstances. We feel somehow at peace with them, as though we have weathered much together and our spirits naturally open to them. Again, I think every one of us has had that experience. One of the ways of identifying a soulmate is to look into their eyes. Shakespeare said, the eyes are the windows to the soul. They actually don't change from one life to the other. All of our other physical features do change, but the eyes remain the same. So if you're really aware and really in tune, you look into somebody's eyes, you could pretty much get an inkling into who they are on a soul level. Now, soulmates are not limited to individuals. You can find soulmates in your work colleagues, in congregants at your church, members of the same organization, in your town, your classmates. I ran into this when I joined Unity. My fellow congregants, we had to have been together before. And also at A.R.E. I remember one time Peter Woodbury said to be called A.R.E. Karma House. And I had to laugh because, you know, if you want to press each other's buttons, we're all looking for the same thing, right? So we tend to be drawn to the same organizations, the same people, looking for that connection. And that's where we meet up with some of these folks that we knew in other lifetimes, and we sort of butt heads with them at times. It's a great place to learn lessons. Believe me, I've learned quite a few in all of those circumstances. Edgar Cayce pointed out that souls that are drawn to larger group dynamic become traveling companions. There's a wonderful book, if you want to read more about group incarnations, called Mission to Millborough. It's by Marge Ryder. She chronicles 15 people who were living in Lake Elsinore, California, and they had been together before in the same rural town in Virginia during the Civil War. It's really absolutely fascinating. So if you want to read about a group incarnation, the interesting thing about a group incarnation is just that the patterns of behavior just keep repeating and repeating and repeating until it's resolved, and it repeats in the entire group. So it's more than just, you know, a one-on-one thing. When I was doing research for one of my books, I had the pleasure of working with Steve. Steve was a 69-year-old retiree, and I wasn't looking for somebody that had a group incarnation, but his came up. He went to a past life in ancient Rome when his name was Leanne. And Leanne had this fear that her peers, the men and women around her, wanted to poison her. And so she was on guard all the time. And he talked in great detail about what it was like in that time, talking about being in the Colosseum, talking about how much Leanne admired the gladiators, how she put her thumb up and everybody else put their thumb down. And that only exasperated her sense that these people were against her. And it was really very fascinating. In his current life, Steve worked at a university, and the same group of people from the Roman life were his co-workers here at the university. What was interesting about his case study was, and I'm sure those of you who have done any kind of work in this area know, you really have to listen with a discerning ear when you're doing regressions, because people will say things during the course of the regression that'll give you the clues as to what they're working on. So when he was Leanne in the regression, he was talking about this group of other men and women around him. He would say things like, "I hate them and what they stand for. They're sociopaths. They are about no one but themselves." And then when he was talking about his coworkers at the university, he had the same identical feelings toward them. He described them as having the exact same characteristics. He even called them sociopaths. So it was the same identical energy, the same thoughtlessness. And so he left the university, I think, before he really had a chance to work this out. So chances are this might repeat itself again, unless he does something about it in this life to stop that pattern from repeating. But it's just so fascinating to me how these things repeat themselves. And he had no clue. He had no idea about this past life in Roy. He didn't make it up. Why would he? There's a lot of detail in it that I think you'd find pretty fascinating if you read it. But that's how group incarnations work. We just come together as a whole group of people. I had another woman who also worked at a university and was doing the same sort of, had an ancient life with this group of people, and they were again with her in this life. And in the prior lifetime, they pushed her down some stone stairs and she hit her head and died. In this life, she's had all kinds of head injuries. And when there was an earthquake in Mineral, Virginia, that group of people that she was working with pushed her out of the way and she fell there too. So I just thought that was just so interesting, the way these patterns repeat themselves. So I said earlier about one of the ways to find out about a soulmate is through a past life regression. And why? Well, you know, when we work with a regression and we go, I always ask Spirit to take my client to the past life that's most impacting them right now. Because you've had many, 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 many past lives. You're not working on all of them. You're only working on one in particular that you decided you had some unfinished business from. And you decided you were going to bring it into this life to work on it. So in searching for answers to soulmate questions, through a regression, you can get answers to questions like, why did you choose your parents? Why are you in an abusive relationship? What is your soul's purpose? That latter one is the one that gets asked most often. So regression will point out what your karmic lessons are. What did you decide you were going to work on in this life? What are the issues that you brought with you that you want to work through? And it helps you to work out to see patterns, because that's the other question I always ask. What is it about yourself in this past life that's like who you are today? What are the behavior patterns that are similar? What are the parallels between the two? And oftentimes, when you can very easily identify that, a little light bulb goes off, and you go, "Oh, now I get it. Now I see where this is truly coming from." This is a quote from Kevin Tedeschi, who is the former CEO at the A.R.E. He wrote a book on Edgar, Cayce, and soulmates. He said, "What motivates people to search for something they cannot quite define, or have a sense of looking for someone that they've never even met? Is some undefinable impulse responsible for that inevitable intersection of lives, which eventually brings two people together?" Well, I can kind of answer that. Some of you may have read my book about Edgar Cayce and T.J. Davis. T.J. Davis, Cayce said in a reading he gave him when he was 2 days old, said he was the reincarnation of Thomas Jefferson and Alexander the Great. So, as a reporter for the universe, I thought that was a really interesting story. And I set out to meet him, and it was strewn with obstacles, believe me. It's a whole story unto itself, and it's in that book if you care to read it. But I was compelled almost to find him and to learn more about him. It is an undefinable impulse once it sort of sets in, and you have your soul set on something. I didn't know at the time that I had made a promise that I would write about him. I'd set the record straight. It took me 8 years to write that book, and a lot of wringing of the hands in between. But I felt compelled. I felt like I had to do this. I had promised to do it, and I was going to do it. That sort of desire to get those answers is something that does define the soulmate relationship. Nothing in life is random. I don't believe anything is random. There's always a purpose for everything, and I've started at various points in time of writing about my own journey with soulmates and twin souls and all of that. It's a very compelling story, but it's also very personal and somewhat painful. So I don't know if I'll get that done in this lifetime. Maybe the next one. We'll see. Now, the question, what is a twin soul? I had mentioned to Carol that I use the terminology twin soul and twin flame interchangeably. I'm not saying that's correct. I'm just saying that's what I do. This is a little bit more difficult to grasp. A twin soul is similar to a soulmate, but there are some interesting differences. The biggest one is you only have one. Soulmates, you have many, 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 many soulmates. You only have one twin soul. As an example, like I said, I know most of you maybe don't know Edgar Cayce and the work that he did, but those of you who do, Edgar Cayce's twin soul was his secretary, Gladys Davis. When Cayce was in a trance and he was doing his readings, his source said that Cayce and Gladys were as one mind, soul, spirit, body, and in the earth's plane as the voice over many waters. What are the hallmarks of a twin soul? You have the exact same purpose in life. You have the exact same mission in life. So you're in separate bodies, you're leading separate lives, yet your minds are thinking alike. So when Mr. Cayce died in 1945, Gladys took on the role of saving the 14,000 readings that he did and preserving the A.R.E. and the Cayce legacy. She was of one mind to do that. So she actually continued the work that she did and enabled the A.R.E. to be what it is today. We wouldn't have any of that if she hadn't picked up that mantle when Mr. Cayce died. Now, one thing about twin souls that's also different is that you don't have to be incarnate at the same time. You can have a twin soul who's in spirit and you can be in a physical body, but they're working on the other side with you. Another hallmark of a twin soul relationship is that there is a lack of competition or one-upsmanship. That doesn't exist in that kind of a relationship. So here's what I just shared with you. That's Gladys, by the way. That's Edgar Cayce and Gladys. So what did Mr. Cayce say about the subject of twin souls? Someone asked him the question, I'm interested in the theory of twin souls. Is this true? And Mr. Cayce said, I think I have it on the next slide. Yeah, it depends upon what is the purpose as to the application. That there are identical souls? No. No two leaves of a tree, no two blades of grass are the same. They are the complement one to another, yes, but these are dependent upon the purpose. Now, we don't always find our twin soul in any given lifetime. I did, but he's since passed over. So in order to find your twin soul, it is said you must reach a certain level of advancement. You've worked through your own karma separately and apart from what they've worked through. You've achieved security within yourself. You're not dependent on anybody else for your sense of self. You don't have a driving need for physical intimacy, but rather intimacy of the spirit. You're drawn together by love and the unbearable pain of separation. Kevin Tedeschi defined the difference by saying the primary distinction between soulmates and twin souls is that soulmates are brought together as a means of assisting both individuals in soul growth, and twin souls often come together in an effort to achieve a joint task or a united work. So I'd like to share with you a few of the case studies that I had in my book. The first one is Holly and Jack. That's who they are in this lifetime. In a prior lifetime, their names were Giselle and Xavier. I knew Holly from A.R.E. She was part of our core team here in Charlottesville, and she always would volunteer whenever I was looking for volunteers for some of my research projects. She'd be right there for me. So when we did a past life together, she went back to past life where her name was Giselle. She was a child living in France, and then her parents died. And then she traveled to New York to live with an uncle. She had started to pursue a fashion career in France, and once her parents had died and she got this inheritance, she thought, well, I'll go to New York. My uncle will help me develop my fashion career in New York, and then I'll be off and running. But when she got to New York, she didn't much like her uncle. He wanted to marry her off and take her inheritance. And of course, she wanted nothing to do with that. So that life ended badly. In this life, Holly wanted financial and emotional security. and all through the time that I knew, she was a wonderfully talented esthetician in this life, which is interesting because Giselle was doing fashion design work to beautify women, and Holly in this life was doing it, but she was doing it in a whole different way. So she was looking for her financial and emotional security in this life, and she meets Jack. Well, she knew Jack from when they were kids, and when she moved from Virginia back to New York in this life, they met up again, and he made her all kinds of promises about, marry me and you won't have to worry about anything. And so she did, but unfortunately, it wasn't a happy marriage at all. And it ended. So when I had mentioned to you earlier about listening to what people say in the course of a regression, to give you a hint about what they're dealing with in the here and now, these are some of the comments that Holly made. She's about Giselle. I never got to finish. My uncle sidelined me. I felt like a prisoner. I was unable to say or do anything. I had no control. It wasn't a very happy life. She echoed that in this life when she married Jack. So it was an interesting repeat of a pattern. So yeah, in every respect, Giselle and Xavier were soulmates in the uncle and niece relationship, and then in this relationship, they were friends first, and then husband and wife. This is a reading from Edgar Cayce. Those of you who don't know the Cayce readings, when there's a number given like this, it means they would assign numbers to the people who are asking for readings in order to preserve their anonymity. So whoever is 1695, this is their first reading. Cayce said, where individuals come together in such an association, ever there is something to be worked out. For one has been or is dependent upon the other for some expression or some means or manner of reaching a development or an attunement to the creative forces in the experience of each. So he says, basically, if you're meeting up with a soulmate, somebody in your relationship, that means there's something you're trying to work out with each other. That working out, that soulmate relationship extends to our mother, our parents, the parent and the child, excuse me, relationship. One of the things I like to tell, and we do go into this in great detail when I do a pre-life planning session, is that we select our parents. That's not an accident who our mom and dad are. One of the questions I ask in the course of that regression is, why did you want so-and-so for your mother? Why did you want so-and-so for your father? What is it about those two souls as parents that they're going to teach you that no other mother or father would have been able to teach you? They were uniquely chosen for that purpose. And everybody always can answer that question without hesitation. They know exactly why they wanted those people for their parents. And I like to say that to kids too. It's like, well, you picked me for your mother. I don't know, I'm not, there must be some reason you did that. I did see this in my research project with Marina, who felt a tremendous obligation to look out for her mother. And she used the term soul level grief when they were apart. Now, Marina knew of 3 prior lives in which she was with the soul that is her mother in this life. The one that I really found fascinating was, she claims, was during the Russian Revolution. And in that lifetime, she had to leave her mother behind. Her uncle, who is in the army of the Tsar, knew what was happening, and he was rushing to get her and her sister out of Russia, but they couldn't get to to the mother because she was already too far behind the lines, and so they had to leave the mother behind. That sense of guilt in having done that in that prior lifetime ended up being repeated again and again and again, and in this lifetime as well, where the mother is once again the mother and the daughter is once again the daughter. But the interesting thing about Marina's history is that, and I don't see this very often, it was an intergenerational incarnation, meaning that usually people do not incarnate in their same biological families. It does happen. There are some cultures who believe you do that naturally, you do it all the time. But in my work and in the studies that I have done, it doesn't happen that often. And there's a reason for that. So, but in her case, Marina's daughter in that Russian Revolution lifetime is now her mother in this life. Her husband in that life became her grandfather in this life, and her sister in that life is the great aunt in this life. So these are all soulmate relationships, but they're in various different forms. So, coming in as a daughter, coming in as a husband, coming in as a grandfather, a mother, a sister, a great aunt. Our souls just sort of move around. But in her case, it was through this whole biological family. So she was dealing with working out this grief, this feeling of abandoning her mother in this life. And if you read a chapter on her and her mother, you can see how she's really tortured by this relationship, this sense of being responsible for the mother in this lifetime, and how they have this really interesting exchange of energy between the two of them. I mean, there are times, haven't you having this? I don't know, those of you who have children, sometimes they act as though they're your parent. My daughter did that early. Sometimes she still does that, where she thinks she's my mother. And she's not into any of what I'm into, so I don't say to her, hey, I'm the mother in this life and you're the daughter. But that kind of dynamic is definitely something that I sense in her, and I think many big parents have that experience with their children, getting that sort of mixed up in the ethers. Here's another Cayce reading that I pulled, 3379-2. But when there are those relationships that prevent the fulfilling of the purposes for which the entity entered, and these become apparent, and there's no altering, it's better that there be disassociations of such that each may fall in that category through and in which they each may serve the God they have chosen in a life experience. So one of the questions I get asked a lot about reincarnation is, how can a soul that's guilty of some terrible crime like murder or something like that be allowed to return? That's a subject all unto itself, so I'm not going to get into that for now, but I did have quite a few case studies of individuals who were reincarnated with souls who had done something horrendous to them in a prior lifetime. Case in point, Sue and Bill. They started out as soulmates and they drifted into being cellmates for certain. They've been married in this lifetime for 30 years. They have 3 children, but it's been a troubled marriage. And Sue said she had no attraction or emotional connection to Bill. And she said Bill became very angry, very controlling. And when we went back and looked, she had multiple lifetimes with him in which she suffered some sort of throat chakra trauma. She talked about one lifetime where He was a jealous husband. He put a rope around her neck and dragged her from a horse till she died. Um, and in this lifetime, what I thought was interesting is that she has had a lot of thyroid issues and a lot of throat issues that she's dealing with. It was the previous lifetime prior to this one that was really interesting. They were father and daughter in that life, she and Bill, and he was doing some hypnotism work around. I don't remember where they were exactly, what country they were in, but he would go and he would do his little mesmerizing trick and attempt to control people for the purpose of swindling them, getting their money. She had a natural psychic ability, and at a very young age, she was learning how to do much of what he could do, but she was surpassing him. And at one point, he became very jealous of her, and he wanted to hypnotize her so that she wouldn't do this anymore. And he couldn't do it. And finally, out of rage, he ended up strangling her. So once again, she had the throat trauma. So she, in this lifetime, has this subconscious message that as long as she does what he wants her to do, as long as she listens to him and follows what he wants her to act like and say and do, she'll be just fine. If she defies him in any way, she's going to die. So that's been playing itself out in her subconscious, and she's been dealing with that. But the last I heard, she was taking matters into her own hands, and because she understood where this fear of hers was coming from, she could see the parallels, the behavior patterns, and so she has really put a stop to it and ended their relationship. Here's another Cayce reading. Then the entity became associated with many of those that are in the entity's own household in the present, and their contacts, their aids, their fallings away are necessary for the developments of all so associated in the present. This is where we get into sibling rivalry. Soulmates, brothers and sisters are soulmates in every sense of the word. This is really common for soulmates to come together in a sibling relationship. And it's not always, we each come into a family with our own agendas, right? We've picked the same parents because those parents gave us the socioeconomic environment that we needed to work on whatever issues our soul wanted to work on. But we also are coming in with some of the same souls that we've known before in a brother and sister relationship. One of those that's in the book, his name is Cameron, and he wanted to explore his relationship with his sister Meredith. With sibling relationships, you either love them or hate them, or we're close to them, or we're distant, or involved, or indifferent, or supportive, or challenging. But we each have our own agenda. Now, Cameron and Meredith Cameron was able to trace his past life journey with Meredith almost to the beginning of time. Now, he claims to have had a past life in Egypt with her. And actually, I did not know who these people were, most of the third and Menwe, but actually turns out they really did exist. Cameron is one of those very, very rare individuals that I have met who remembers famous past lives and can document that. It very seldom happens, but in his case, it happens fairly often where he has that. I guess the veil for him was lifted a long time ago, and he can clearly see these things. He's one of the most fascinating men that I have ever had the privilege of knowing and working with. But anyway, these people are real. And she was an adopted sibling, and she was sabotaging him, or trying to sabotage him, because she wanted to be the queen. She was good at sports and making her own money, but she was obsessed with power. And in this life, she's equally competitive with him. She has to be the star. So they went their separate ways when Cameron went into the service, and they haven't had contact for years. But I asked him, how are you going to overcome this karma between the two of you? When are you going to get it? If it's been going on since the beginning of time, don't you want it to stop? And he said the way it'll stop is if she gives up the power grab and learns a different way. So whether she'll do that in this life, I don't know. The one that I found most fascinating is the last one in the book, Melanie and Mustafa. I met Melanie through an A.R.E. group that I was teaching soul writing course last summer. And Melanie was in my group, and she was whenever she would do the soul writing, she was talking about somebody named Mustafa. And I thought, who's Mustafa? I thought, well, maybe he's a guide of hers or something, but that's all she talked about was Mustafa says this and Mustafa says that. Well, as it turns out, she volunteered to be in my study. She said they met through Facebook. He was living in Morocco at the time. She was in Chicago. You have to read the chapter because I can't adequately describe their relationship. But she says she could feel him, even though they were thousands of miles apart. They had that kind of etheric connection. They eventually married, but he died quite soon after, just a few years after they were married. And they're still communicating. When I did the research project, I said, well, let's do a regression. And then something was telling me that a regression wouldn't work in her case. And I've never really get that sort of very strong feeling. But as it turned out, they did not have a past life together. There was nothing to review because they had never been together before. And the other thing I wanted to mention about Melanie is that, I have a lot of clients, well, not a lot, but I have clients who say to me, oh, this is my last life. I'm not coming back ever again. And I say to them, really, you've accomplished everything. You don't need to come back. No, I'm done. I'm out of here. And so, that's fine if that's what they believe. But in her case, I did believe her. I did absolutely feel that that was the case. As it turned out, Mustafa was her final teacher and her emissary. He was preparing her for leaving for this last lifetime. So he was working with her on the other side. And she claimed that they were mirrored souls. And I don't know if any of you have heard the expression mirrored souls. I hadn't. Because she was adamant, we are not soulmates, we are not twin souls, we are mirrored souls. But I'm wondering if, because this was her final teacher and emissary, if that was the appropriate terminology. I don't know, but it's quite fascinating. The soul writing messages that she got confirmed the nature of their relationship. So if you want to read about that, that's the last chapter in the book. In conclusion, I'd like to share with you a quote that I like from Linda Howe, who wrote How to Read the Akashic Records. She says, the light in you shines brighter than ever before. Your soulmates and traveling companions will find you. It will be so much easier for you to recognize those like-minded, light-spirited souls. And you'll have a wonderful time together. When you meet for the first time in person, it will seem like a reunion of longtime friends. And do you know what? That's exactly what it will be. These are the other books that I have written. If you'd like to get more information on my work, Soul Writing was my first book. It's about writing in an altered state of consciousness. Your Soul Remembers is about using soul writing to access past lives. I Did It to Myself Again is about the life between life case studies that I did. Karma Can Be a Real Pain is about how we bring in physical chronic conditions stemming from a prior lifetime. The next book is the one that I mentioned to you, Edgar Cayce and the Unfulfilled Destiny of Thomas Jefferson Reborn, which is the only biography I've ever written. And then the inner light, how the Beatles planted the spiritual seed in our souls. Some of you know, not all of you, but some of you know that I was president of a Beatles fan club in the 60s. And I often wondered, how did a girl in an Italian American family on the south side of Chicago get into past life research? And I wondered if it was the years I spent in the Beatles fan club and as a Beatles fan, did they plant the spiritual seed? So that was my exercise in seeing if that was indeed the case. And it was. If you'd like to reach out to me, this is my contact information. I do all of my sessions on Zoom. You could look at my website. You can read more about the kinds of sessions that I do. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, I would love to add you to the list. I also do private soul writing sessions if you want to learn how to write in an altered state of consciousness. Soul writing is merely a written form of meditation. So I thank you so much for being a part of tonight's program, and I am happy to engage in a conversation and take questions if you want to ask anything.
Joanne, do you want to look at the questions in the chat and start there?
Oh, my, there's quite a few, aren't there?
Quite a few, yeah.
Okay.
Or I can read them to you, whichever way works better.
Okay. I could go through them.
Okay, great.
How is a soulmate different from a very close friend? It's not. As I said, anybody that you have had a relationship with in the past is a soulmate. Now they come in. I like to think of it as tiers. Like you have a core in the middle, and then there's people that are on the periphery. They're all your soulmates, but the ones that are closest to you are more toward the center. They're the ones that they really know you on an intimate level. They know what you're working on, and they come in to help you with that. Sometimes they help you just by being loving and supportive of you. And those are very dear souls indeed. And we should all be so lucky to have people like that. Would a soulmate connection always be positive in nature? It depends on how you look at it. Even the most negative experience can be positive on a soul level because you're learning something from it, right? So we may be very wounded in a soulmate relationship and think, I'll get you for that. But in fact, if you step back and you go, okay, what did I learn from this? What was the lesson in this for me? Then indeed it's a positive experience. But you really have to kind of wrap your mind around that concept about changing. And listen, I know of what I speak because I can go there. I can go to the dark side anytime. But if you really just step back and look at it, and you'll see something positive coming out of it. Yeah, I agree about the cellmate being a great title. It would have been. Is it our goal to get away from cellmates? Absolutely, yes, it is. It is. It took me years to recognize and get away from mine, but I'm glad that I did. I had somebody in my life who I love dearly on a soul level. This is the ironic part of it because you just love them on a soul level. You just but they have a different agenda. And the one person I was involved with kept her thumb down on me. I couldn't budge. I couldn't move. I couldn't accomplish anything without her taking credit for it or trying to sabotage it. But because I loved her so much as a friend, and I didn't want to end the relationship. And the longer I stayed in it, the worse it got. Until finally one day I thought to myself, I have to get the strength to end this, even though I felt like we had gone back centuries with each other. I thought, that's all well and good. In this lifetime, we can't be together. There's just no way I'm going to accomplish anything. So yes, the goal is to get away from I don't think you can think of it in terms of you can rehabilitate this person or that you can transcend it. I mean, you have to transcend it on your own. They have their karma, you have yours. So it's really important that you recognize your own and deal with it. Oh, the group Incarnation, it was Mission to Millboro by Marge Ryder, Rieder. Does everyone have a twin soul? No. I don't think that every, well, you may, but they may be not incarnated at this time. You really have to kind of look at what you're working on in this lifetime and see if you recognize anybody that's in your life that's doing that's with you on that. That's really helping you or supporting you or doing the same work that you're doing. So it's like a 2-for-1 kind of deal. That's how I look at it that way. But you can go through an entire lifetime without ever recognizing or finding a soul. It's not pertinent that it be part of who you are today. It happens, but it's not always the case. So you have no control over reconnecting with a soulmate like Cameron with Meredith. Well, how many people actually recognize that they've connected with someone like that, with a soulmate? As I mentioned earlier, nothing is random. At least I don't believe anything in life is random. I think there's a purpose for everything. Cayce said that as well. What you do with that information is totally up to you. You could go through your whole life with your head in the sand and not recognize it, not do anything about it, not address it. I think most people actually end up doing that. But if you want to, if you're really introspective the way I am, and I look very deeply at relationships, and I always ask the question, why? What's going on here? What am I supposed to learn? And then get something out of it. You could resolve it, you can move on and be free of it. But if you don't ask those questions and you don't, you could go through your whole life where it goes right over your head. But they're still there. Those same soulmates are there, whether you recognize them or not, whether you're doing anything about the relationship or not, they're still there. Oh, Jonna, I was Thomas Jefferson's mother. Oh, where did you go? In a regression. Can't wait to read my book read about TJ Davis. Interesting about TJ, he was not that impressed with the fact that Mr. Cayce said he was Jefferson. Matter of fact, that's what caused him so much pain. Imagine being 2 days old and being told that you were Thomas Jefferson in a prior lifetime and that you could do for the world what Jefferson did for this country. How in the world are you going to do that? How are you going to live up to that? He didn't, and a lot of people who knew that he had this reading really held it against him. So if you want to read a fascinating study of basically, I think it's about free will, right? His soul could have gone in one direction, but decisions were made and he went off in the other direction. So well, thanks, Carol, for putting up Mission to Millboro. I appreciate that. Is twin flames being in separation and the runner chase dynamic true, or that's a different type of relationship? Christy, I don't know what that means. So I can't answer that. Can anybody clarify that? I don't know what that means.
Maybe she can open up her mic and ask it directly.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Joanne.
Hi,
Thanks
Christy.
for presenting everything and answering our questions. So I've heard this thing about twin flames being like in separation. Like there's all these Facebook groups where people are like, oh, I'm in separation with my twin flame, or oh, like they're the runner, I'm the chaser. Like they blocked me. Oh, they finally unblocked me. Like it's like so weird. Like I just don't know. Or like sometimes they're afraid to face their twin flame if they're like not ready or something. And it's like I don't know if it doesn't really sound like it based on what you're saying about like Edgar Cayce and his secretary.
No, it doesn't. I've never heard that before. But then I'm a lot older than you, so I probably wouldn't know what that means. But no, I wouldn't. You would embrace your twin soul, you wouldn't be afraid of them. You would be running and chasing. I mean, I don't understand that whole dynamic. I'm sorry, I can't answer that for you.
Okay, so in your study, that's not really the case, basically.
Not in my experience, no.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, Rebecca said, do twin souls only find each other when they're ready to fulfill their joint mission? I have a series of coming together and separating into yeah, labels. Yeah, yeah. I would say, yeah, the joint mission is the key to the twin soul relationship. I think I was a twin soul with TJ Davis. And the reason I say that is because we were totally on the same page in terms of what we wanted to do in terms of the Cayce material. So as a little boy, he used to sleep on the readings. He would listen to Mr. Cayce give reading. He was engulfed in that whole for 8 years of his life. The first 8 years of his life, he was totally immersed in that. I think Mr. Cayce, when he said to him, when he did the reading on him, said, "You'll do for the world what Jefferson did for this country." I think he meant sharing the Cayce teachings. I don't think it had anything to do with politics. I don't think it had anything to do with Thomas Jefferson. And so from 1987 till now, I've been actively involved with the A.R.E. and all of my books contain information on Cayce. I've spoken at the A.R.E. multiple times, written for their magazine. So I've continued to share that in the same with the same energy and devotion that he did, or he wanted to. He didn't quite get there, but at one point in time we were actually doing it together, which was fabulous. So yeah, I really think that the key to a twin soul relationship is that joint mission that you work on. Kathy, you wanted to voice your question? You're welcome to do that.
This subject, although I live in Virginia and I'm very aware of your orientation and your association with your background and so on, Cayce and so on. I guess my perspective has come from a different end of things. And I guess what I'm wondering in these relationships and these difficult interactions and whether they're soulmates and whether they're twin souls and all this, I guess I feel like our journey is more individual. And yes, we may have a plan. And yes, there will be people who come and go in our lives to give us learning moments, so to speak. And it's so dependent on where we are at that moment and that time that we come across these people. How developed and how much have we worked on ourselves? How much have we, you talk about these emotions and these past lives and all this stuff. Why haven't they been released? Why haven't you worked on releasing all that? And that, anytime anger comes up, why am I having anger and what is behind the anger? So for me, it's kind of a whole different orientation. It's not happening to me, it's happening because of me, because of the work I have not done.
Right.
That I need to work through. Okay, if I have a bad relationship, what is that moment? What is that person? What is that moment here to teach me? And am I aware enough to work through that for myself and deal with myself? I think so many times people get so involved in all the other people's stuff, when we need, and we're validating from outside instead of all of it being inside, because we need to start here first.
Exactly.
I don't care who's out there or who's interacting with you. If you cannot be aware enough to say, oh, why am I acting that way with this person? What am I feeling? And if I'm feeling this, I need to get rid of it. I need to release it. Because this is all about my journey, first and foremost. And whenever people come into, people get so romantically involved in the soulmate and the soul, twin soul garbage. Anyway, not garbage. I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend. But again, it's about the outside stuff. They're not really focused on what the inside stuff within them and what their job and their journey is in this lifetime.
Well, yeah, Kathy, you pretty much encapsulized what's in the book. So
Oh,
thank
well,
you for
okay.
doing
I
that.
haven't read the book, so I can't really say. But
Yeah. No, thank you so much, because that is the exact point that I was hoping I was making. So thank you for sharing your perspective on it. I appreciate it. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Hi, Carol.
Do twin souls always come in as male and female?
No, they're not always the same. They're not always opposite sex.
Okay, and another question about twin souls. Is it the same thing as, have you ever heard the term split apart?
No, but is that part of what I had started my conversation with, about that whole thing starting with Zeus splitting a soul, and we've been, I think Osiris, I mean, it goes back thousands of years, that whole idea of being split. And I think that's part of why, we somehow got that programmed in us, that we're not whole. And I think if I have any, final comment about this, is just, I want everybody to walk away knowing you are whole. You're not in need of, there's no half of you missing. Okay? Your creator didn't create half of you. You're whole unto yourself, and all these other souls are our traveling companions who kind of come in with us and help us out. They know what lessons we're here to learn. They were there when we were planning this whole thing, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna come in. You want to work on abandonment in your next lifetime? Okay, I'm gonna come in, and at some point I'm gonna abandon you. So it's a way of helping to present the issues that we ourselves decided we needed to work on. And so for that reason, that helps with forgiveness so much. If you can look at a soul and see them as somebody who's come in to assist you, to help you, to mirror to you what it is that you yourself decided you wanted to work on, then when something goes wrong and we're hurt, I mean, you can kind of try to step back from it and look at them and say, I know they love me on a soul level. And then you could release that and let that go, and then move on.
Yeah, I so agree. Like Kathy was saying, if we look at that other person as our mirror and ask what they are showing us about ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
that is a really powerful tool to be able to work out whatever is unresolved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have any questions? Let me.
Well, Barb added a question. What's really going on when multiple
Yeah,
people say we're the same person?
hand up. And who else was it that had a question?
Oh, I was just reading the question Barb put on the chat box here, about why multiple people say they're the same person.
Oh, okay. That's a little different topic than soulmates, isn't it? But do you have an answer about that?
Well, you and I talked about this, Carol. I'm all about one soul, one person, but there are other studies and beliefs in which we kind of go off into the ethers about parallel lives and all that other stuff that I don't subscribe to. So that is a topic unto itself, though. Really, I don't know that I can do it justice in a few sentences. So Barb, we'll have to talk about that later, another time. Christy, you raised your hand.
Yeah, so I was wondering, along the vein of when you said like they're not always a male and female, but like let's say like because there are some male souls in female bodies and female souls in male bodies, like would they still be like a male and a female soul, or not even necessarily then?
Well, the soul doesn't have a gender, but you pick a body. That's one of the questions I ask when we do the pre-life planning session. What are you going to come in as a male or female, and why? I read somewhere, and I don't know if this was Michael Newton or somebody, that said 75% of the time we're in the same sex. So I'm predominantly a female soul. I've been in female bodies more than male, but we've been both. It depends on what we're working on, what we want. And you need to be both in order to have a really balanced understanding of how, life works and how members of the opposite sex work. So, yeah, but I don't look at a soul as a male or female soul. I just look at them as as choosing to be in a male or a female body, depending on what they want to accomplish in any given life. A lot of my clients will say they want to be female because they want to be nurturing. They want to go through the birth process, giving birth. And the men, of course, they want to be in a male body because they want to feel that strength. They want to know that they're, that they have that physical strength. So, you prefer one over the other, but we've been both.
Okay. And then, so is it always a romantic thing then with twin flames or twin souls?
Not at
Is it
all. No.
okay? So they're not always like attracted to each other. They shouldn't necessarily get married.
No, because sometimes they're the same sex. I mean, unless, and that's fine too. It's not a romantic relationship. You don't even have to be in the same country. You don't have to be in the same, like I said, you don't even have to be incarnated at the same time. So it's a little bit different. It happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's just that it's rare, for it to be a male-female romantic relationship.
So it's more uncommon than common, basically, for it to be like romantic.
I think so, but that's just from my experience and my years of research.
Okay, and then last thing is, do they look similar? Like, their faces have similar traits or body type similar, or not at all?
Not necessarily. No, I don't see that as an issue at all. Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
sure. How are we doing, Carol, for time?
We're doing well, and Wendy has a question. Now I lost Wendy. Okay, let me pin her and go ahead, Wendy. What's your question?
So thank you, Carol. I was trying to find how to make my hand go up, and for some reason I couldn't find it, so I just raised it. I just wanted to, for Christy, who was asking about whether it was needed to be, whether it was always romantic. I just wanted to tell you that I knew a lovely woman many years ago who she knew absolutely that her twin was, he was a different, the other sex, opposite sex to her, male, living in Japan. She said no romance at all. And, I think he was actually, I don't think he was a family member, but I have even met people who it was like grandfather and grandson or something like that. They knew this was the relationship, but they were definitely not romantically involved. So I just thought, just wanted to share that with you, if that answers the question.
Yeah, that's really great info. Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Wendy.
Okay.
Let's see. Somebody made a comment about Madame Curry.
Oh, Barb, yeah. Yeah, that would be a good example of a twin soul. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Hmm. And they were romantic, right? Romantic married couple. Yeah.
They were married and partners in their purpose as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see if anyone else has a question. And it doesn't look like it. So I always like to end with a question for you, Joanne. And that is, what do you think the greater purpose of either a soulmate or a twin soul is?
I think that their intention in our lives is to shine a light on the issues, on the unfinished business that we need to attend to, the work that we're here to do. And they can do that either through chaos or through love and support. Doesn't much matter, as long as we learn something from them. Life, to me, our entire journey on this planet is a series of lessons to learn. And the souls who lovingly come into this life with us are here as a companion for us to as we make this journey together. So if we can adjust our thinking and look at them in that light, I think that it would really raise our awareness and enable us to move forward through even the most challenging of times.
Well, that's a great answer. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you for sharing a taste, a sampling of your book. I can't wait to read it. I've had so much on my plate the last few months that
Oh, I know that,
I'm still
Carol.
behind on my reading, but I definitely am looking forward to it. And I'm sorry Lisa had an emergency with her cat, which is why she, wasn't able to join us. I know many of you out there are pet lovers, and so you totally understand. She's